All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Franchise Nutrition and Fitness Podcast. Today, Matt, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to talk one of my favorite things. Obviously, we're talking exercise. We're going to talk about favorite body parts and muscle groups to exercise, and different variations of exercises that you can do for that particular muscle group.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I feel like when we're thinking about the favorite muscle group to work, it changes based off the condition of where you're at, but also where, like physically where you're at, but also you mentally where you're at.
Absolutely, yeah. Like there's days where I like squatting. If I'm in a good mental headspace, there's days where I despise doing any sort of leg workout if I'm not in the right mental headspace. So you are absolutely correct.
Yeah, and like the other times when you're in between phases, like if I'm doing workouts that are more geared towards like a conditioning kind of perspective, thinking about things that are going to try and build my heart rate a little bit more rapidly, I definitely choose different exercises than I do if I'm strength building.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The stuff I'd want to do for strength and power, yeah, is definitely not the conditioning stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think it also varies too when I go from like where you're at physically in the area. If I'm at home where I have access to some gym equipment, if I'm on vacation and I may have access to no gym equipment, and then also when I'm in like a commercial facility and there's even more available equipment.
Yeah, the commercial facility is always fun if you're in a larger one. It's a lot of times you're wanting to try different stuff than you have. Like, yeah, if you're able to perform a certain exercise at home and you're nice setup that you have, if you've got this wide array of crazy toys that you're not used to, accustomed to, yeah, it's some stuff may be a little bit more fun than others.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about it, would you say there are 5 general muscle groups?
Yeah, like to keep it nice and simple and to do the kind of the stereotypical, like you and I started out, like we talked about in the first episode, of kind of that traditional bodybuilder type working out. Absolutely. You typically hear the guys that, walk in the gym and you're like, well, what's today? Today's chest day.
Yeah. What day of the
Shoulder
week
day.
is it? It's Monday. So
It's Monday. You got to grab a bench and yeah, take up everything. Your nice thin little tank top on, your gallon of water, walk it over there and ready to put 500 pounds on the bench and rock it out with no proper warm up, right? So yeah, you typically look at your chest, your back, your shoulders, your legs, and your arms are kind of your stereotypical body parts without breaking it down into the more scientific, fun, muscly exercise physiology terminology.
right. So there are 5 groups. So chest, back, shoulders, legs, arms. We're going to say the
Absolutely.
5 groups. Okay. So out of those 5, what is your favorite group to work?
Like, I'm stereotypical dude. I think in a lot of ways, like I think a close second's arms, because who doesn't like a nice, good bicep pump? Typically, the Arnold.
Yeah.
And then I think most though, if we're going like most dudes, I'm the same way. Let me get a good bench press in. Let me get a nice, good chest pump in. Shoulders always look good. Triceps always look good. You get that nice Friday night pump, and you're ready to go out and fill out a shirt nice.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like getting the pump at home, and of course, no man does not like getting the pump at home.
Yes, you need to. Yeah, you need to go watch Pumping Iron.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, although I would say probably like most people, if you're looking at Pumping Iron and his references there, you don't care where you're getting the pump; you're just getting the pump. But that's a different conversation for a different kind of time. But it kind of oddly enough ties in. Matt likes working out chest more than I do. And that is a known fact for anybody that knows the two of us, and especially when we're working out. Like Matt would run our workouts when we did chest days. Like that was always a thing. If we weren't following a specific program, we're just kind of like, what do you want to do today? Matt would do call for chest. Like, let's do chest. Whereas I do not have that desire. Chest is lower on the totem pole for me. I personally like leg day the best, which is
See, I think you're a crazy person. That's
right.
I think you talk to anybody kind of that stereotypical guys. I'll pick on all of us guys now. And most guys let me hit upper body, but I will whine until the end of the day about having to work out legs. Even though you get me in there, and it's kind of like taking a kid to do something. It's like, okay, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I get in there and okay, I kind of like squatting, but I will bitch and moan about it until I actually start with the exercise. But
Yeah.
you're an insane person who goes in there with that optimistic outlook of like, yeah, let's do legs. This is fun.
Yeah, it's good. That is true. I am, maybe I am insane. But the bigger thing with it for me is always what am I best at? And working legs and improving the strength that I have through my legs is always what I've been best at. So if I had to rank my 5 groups in order, again, the 5 groups are chest, back, shoulders, legs, arms. I would do legs, back, shoulders, chest, arms, probably.
Arms last. All right. So you're pretty much opposite of me. I'd go chest. Chest kind of 1A, arms 1B. So chest, arms, back, shoulders, legs. Shoulders, legs depends on like what surgery and injuries I've had at the time too.
What are you recovering from?
Yeah, so sometimes my shoulders are a little jacked up, legs don't seem so bad.
Yeah, I will say the funny thing at this point in time, I haven't wrestled in maybe, let's see, it's 2022 while we're making this. So it's been about 5 years, I think, since the last time I had a wrestling match. And when I do dumbbell flies now versus any time then, I get this annoying like click kind of thing in my shoulder blades. Trying not to use anatomical terms. So, my scapular region, subscapular, somewhere in there. But I think it is from one, I haven't been working out consistently for a long period of time, but also when you progressively fall on steel for close to a decade of your life and you try to do your regular things around that, if you're not consistent in the gym, when you go back to it, all of the normal movements and flow of things aren't going to be normal.
Absolutely. And it's funny, like you talk about being out of wrestling for 5 years and the workouts being different. When I take a little bit of time off or have a weekend where I'm not wrestling, the workouts feel different. Like I took January pretty easily with wrestling bookings, so I would hit it harder in the gym because like, hey, I have more time to recover, and I realized how stupid that can be as well to not allow myself adequate recovery time. It's also interesting, like the times where like I've done more flexibility training, or especially like when I've had a massage and realized that, hey, I can actually have full range of motion in my shoulders, how much better the workouts are.
Yeah. That is always really crazy to me. I don't do any static stretching, first off. And that's a personal call. Everybody's a little bit different there. The evidence doesn't really support it anymore. But the only time I do any active stretching is post workout because you don't want to stretch a cold muscle.
Absolutely.
Not a good idea. Definitely.
So many people confuse that warm up with the stretches. Still to this day, there's a lot of confusion with the general population of like, you see the guys, arm across the chest. Yep, I'm warming up. Like that's not warming up. We'll talk about proper warm ups in a later episode.
Yeah,
I think there we go. There's more subject matter to look forward
to. Right, and I do a dynamic warm up, which we'll talk about again in another time. Then the same kind of dynamic, I do the exact same dynamic warm up every single time. But when I do legs and it's leg day, I always start with squats. I cannot get away from it. There's mixed evidence out there about pre-exhaustion, and I do like sometimes doing the muscle confusion with trying to do something else right before, but it's leg day. I want to see what the amount of weight is that I'm going to push in my last set for squats. It's always been in my head. It's always been a thing. When we were younger and I was in high school, there was a bar in our weightlifting room. I can talk. But there's a bar that was mounted on the wall and it was bent. And I remember being there when it was bent. And this guy that was he went on to play football. I can't remember where. It wasn't a big school. It was like a D2 school. Or maybe it was a D1, but not a good school, like Georgia Southern or something, or Valdosta State. Which
If you attend Georgia Southern or Valdosta State and you're listening to us, the opinions expressed by Ryan do not reflect those opinions of franchise nutrition.
I'm just talking about like the football team itself. The schools are great. I would have gone to Valdosta State had they not withdrawn their scholarship offer. That's another podcast. Go back to listen to episode 1. But if the thing was there was a weightlifting record for squats, and they had whoever at the time, I don't remember what it was, but it was like 1, 2, 3, and one was that where that barbell had gotten bent, and it was up there for so long. It was close to 700 pounds in high school. We were like all 18 at the most. This guy was like a defensive lineman, and they had put enough weight on the bar that when he lifted it off the rack is when it bent.
That's always like just visually the coolest thing I think to do in a gym. Obviously, I don't ever see it with anything I'm lifting. I don't see any flexibility in the bar, but did I ever see just a bar bend like it's made of some rubbery material? But that's not my favorite story about squats coming from your high school.
Oh no, yeah.
So you've got to share this one because, funny enough, I ended up doing part of my student teaching. I my bachelor's degrees in health and physical education, and I did part of my student teaching at the same high school that Ryan graduated from. So I'm going to let Ryan start out with the story that has nothing to do with favorite exercise. It's just an amusing story, and then I will follow it up with my part of it.
Okay. Well, my favorite exercise is still the squat.
Despite this horrific story he's about to share.
Yeah, despite the story that's coming. But you'll see that I don't do box squats, and I haven't done them since this story. So we were in our weightlifting, not class, but in weightlifting session following class. We would have weightlifting times Monday, Wednesday, and Friday following our regular scholastic school. And then during the fall and springtime, they would do them sometimes in the morning at like 6:30, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But this was a particular afternoon, probably a Wednesday, because that's usually when legs would occur. And we were doing box squats. So if you look up a box squat now, you'll find amazing pieces of equipment to help you do box squats, where it's a nice big, not, I would say soft, it's like a hard gym mat pad, but it's usually a cube that sits on top of something. But in the early 2000s, the box that they were utilizing was somebody put it together, pieces of plywood, probably in the shop class, and they had spray painted the inch height on it. So you would
nice rough edges, not exactly super finished. Yeah.
Definitely not routered to be nice and smooth, no sand. You could get a splinter on it, I'm sure. But you're supposed to pick an inch height that would be close to your shin height of the box. So that kind of plays into the story where people don't know what he was doing. But this guy was wearing compression shorts and he had a large amount of weight. If you're doing box squats, and they're very popularized in the West Side method of powerlifting, doing box squats to help increase basically everything, because you're using a lot more of your hip drive, you're using more hamstrings. So utilizing that sitting down motion, standing up can help improve all of your squats, your deadlift, and even your bench. If you're doing your bench,
Yeah, you're kind of able to drive a little bit more coming up off the box with the anatomical position you're coming up from.
right. And from a football standpoint, if you can get down into a squat position and drive faster and stronger off of that squat position, then that should translate to you being able to push somebody more easily, shed a block, get moving faster, all these things. So there's a translatable way that a box squat can help you in football. So they're not getting wrong. But either way, this guy had a large amount of weight and we're doing box squats, had compression shorts on, he squats down, you hear this incredible scream, this blood curdling scream, loses the weight, falls over, there's blood in there, and it turns out that he had ripped his scrotum and crushed one of his testicles underneath the edge of between him and the box. So there's plenty of things that could have happened there. But again, if you look now, you'll have a nice big pad that you're supposed to sit down on.
So flash forward 5 years to me doing my student teaching at this particular high school, teaching a weight training class, teaching proper squat mechanics, teaching proper box squat mechanics. And one of my students, "Hey, Coach Sales, did you hear about this kid that crushed one of his balls here 5 years ago?" I was like, "Actually, yes, I have."
Yeah. My friend Ryan knows this man. He's not the man, but he does know him. Yeah, no, it is ridiculous. I don't know. And I don't recall that we ever did box squats again. I can't.
I would think after such a traumatic experience, I'd probably nix that from the routine as well.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine the parents of said child had a long discussion with coaches of the teams, and that might have been more why they decided not to do box squats ever again. But the fun thing is that kid's father provides legal counsel to plenty of people in the area, so I'm sure that he had a good talk with them about ramifications of possible box squatting.
So Ryan's favorite exercise is very functional, very, could be sports specific, translates to a lot of sports, a lot of movements. That squat, when I trained older adults, when I worked as a fitness manager for an older adult community, some variation squat was always good. It's an activity of daily living. You think about, we stand up, we sit down, we, constant bending over to pick things up, keeping the mobility of the hips, keeping the mobility of the lower back and the strength of the quads and the hamstrings and the glutes. Such a good functional movement that translates to everything. My favorite exercise translates to nothing, essentially. I love the bench press. It's so funny, like it's the litmus test for so many things, like any guy, once they're like probably 13 years old, as soon as they pick up a weight, "Hey man, how much you bench?"
Yeah.
What does it matter? Like the combine, they see how many times they can throw up 225 for your top NFL prospects, right. But never on a football field, never on a baseball field, never on a soccer pitch, never in my life do I find myself every day lying on my back and having to see how much weight I can push off my chest. Not a functional movement. It's mostly ego, but I love it for that reason, because I'm a stereotypical guy. And it's the opposite reason for why you love the squat so much. You love the squat because you like it because you're good at it.
Yeah.
Chest, to me, I like being challenged. I like when I get to that plateau and I'm having to figure out ways to get over that plateau and try to get to those magic numbers. And for me, for the longest time, that magic number was 300 pounds. I wanted to bench 300 pounds, and we get so close to it. We get so close to it. Finally hit it one day, and I'm like, you know what? I'm good. My shoulders and elbows let me know that I was good.
Yeah, they said
And
that's the
that's
max.
we go to risk versus reward, like I'm like, why am I trying to go past 300 pounds with my body, with my injuries? And to me, it's not worth it. There are other exercises, there are other rep ranges, there are other things I can do to get more out of that than trying to maximize my bench press. But it was a goal of mine forever. I accomplished that goal, pivoted my goals after that. But yeah, let me go in there, the bench, lay down on that bench, throw up some of those big plates on the sides, a couple of 45s each side, rip out a bench press and thoroughly enjoy it. And you talk about the guys bending the squats. I know when you and I were at the University of Georgia, we watched a guy bend a bar on a bench press, which
Yeah.
was very impressive. Everybody in the entire gym stopped what they were doing to watch this guy and throw it up with no effort. And that will never be me.
Yeah, I'll never be that guy. And what's really funny now is that's probably back at UGA, and I know I love UGA obviously, but there's nothing that would suggest that they have bars that are designed to hold that weight.
Absolutely.
Like they're going to buy best benefit analysis kind of bars where it's probably a regular Olympic bar, which is designed for spin, not for tensile strength, right? So it's meant to have more whip in the bar so that the ends of the bar move up and down a little bit more. So when you're if you're doing an Olympic lift like a power clean or a snatch or like a clean and jerk, the initial movement as you're moving that up, the bar stays stationary in your hand, but you want the weights on the ends, those sleeves, what you put the weights on, you want them to spin so that way the force of it isn't like against you. Like you moving the weight is still you doing the weight, because if it doesn't spin, then the handle will could crack your wrist if you're not doing it correctly. Which can happen also if you don't do it correctly. But
absolutely, you see people do that all the time. That's the reason I always cue people that for proper alignment, envision that you're punching the ceiling on the bench press, because you see the almost like the hang clean grips sometimes, and I cringe watching people try to bench press without a proper neutral, natural wrist. So talking about UGA, I think anybody that enjoys working out chest that attended University of Georgia after 1996 is spoiled, because every time I go to the gym, I remember how many flat benches they had inside the UGA Ramsey Student Center. And now, you go to a commercial gym, and like, oh, there's only 2 benches and it's a Monday and everybody's using them.
I would love to figure out how they came up with the layout of the gym. And my guess is that they watched how many people congregate in one spot in the gym, and then they all congregate around this 2 benches here. We need to have 8 of them. So there was, I can't remember when, but they stopped doing as much cardio. It's when they opened at the Ramsey Student Center at the University of Georgia. There's one really big gym, and then there's a second smaller gym that has more cardio equipment in it. And there's still a rack in there, or at least when I was there was 1 power rack and 4 benches, I think. But they were different kinds of benches. There was an incline bench, a flat bench, an adjustable bench. And there was a lot of dumbbells, but not a ton of free weights. But when they moved all of that equipment over there and they took out some of the cardio equipment, they put in more lifting pieces of equipment in the big gym. But the thing that they did was they added another row of benches. They didn't add more racks and all those things. They had plenty of racks. There's I can't remember. Well, when I was there were 6 or 7 racks, but they added more benches.
Well, you go with what the consumers want. You do your market research, because and that's every gym that I've ever been to. Even if they don't have a bunch of flat benches, you have this, this litany of chest equipment, of these push movements, of, every variation of like hammer strength chest press. And then you're like, okay, well, they have like two things where I can pull, two things where I can do. And then you wonder why we keep creating these muscle imbalances. Everybody sits at a desk all day, is rounded out, not hitting those muscles at the back of the mid and upper back, and that nice little rounding. And then constantly like, okay, well, I got done with my 9 to 5 on Monday. It'd be fun. Let's go do a bunch of bench press.
Right. So you like working out chest the most, and I like doing squats. But those are both, bench press and squat are both compound exercises, meaning that there's a primary mover and then a secondary mover. So in the bench press, there's your pecs, your triceps, and your anterior deltoids. And then what would you say are all of the movers in the squat?
Oh God, you've got everything. When I've cued people, I've always told people it's everything below the belt. Like there's so many muscle groups are working on top of you having to stabilize your spine with so many muscles of the core. Like your primary stuff, you're hitting the glutes as you're driving, you're hitting the hamstrings, you're hitting the quadriceps. So you've got, like I said, kind of everything below the belt with the squat. This is why it's such a good functional movement.
Yeah. And that's, so I no longer do high bar squats, which we can talk about that another time, but high bar squats are a little bit more onto your trap, and a low bar squat, the bar sits more on your posterior deltoids. And the reason why I do that is because the shear force of the weight is less on your spine with the low bar versus a high bar. And so I have a bulging disc in my lower back, just one for me. And that's why I have to do low bar, so that way it doesn't hurt me when I do it. But if I can do an isolation exercise, so when I move from thinking squats with all of those muscles that Matt's mentioning, you're talking your quads, so there's 4 heads there, your hamstrings, your calves, your glutes that are involved, in a little bit of the lower back for the stabilization, and your abdominal muscles for the core. If I'm thinking about any isolation exercise, when I think about legs, I think normally I would say RDL, but that's also another compound exercise, the Romanian deadlift. But probably my favorite isolation exercise is going to be a lying leg curl.
Lying leg curl.
Or seated leg curl. One of the, so just the leg curl. And the reason for that is it is incredibly hard to get full range of motion in an isolation exercise. And the leg curl is one of those, like on a lying leg curl, if you're not far enough, this is the problem with having longer legs and a shorter torso, is the machine is very specific, and it's designed in a certain way to try and get the most people able to use it. But sometimes if I am on the lying leg curl where the weight starts resistance, my leg is already pre-bent. And then not like in a small amount, not like it's been like 10 degrees or whatever. It's like bent like 30. And I'm just like, what's the point of this? I have to like slide up and like wiggle myself around on the machine just to be able to get it there. But on a seated leg curl, though, usually it's the opposite problem, where if I have to find a way to get my leg bent in a slight amount to get started. Otherwise, like I can't do it because my legs are like fully locked out getting into the seated leg curl. Like when the top part of the machine, you lock it in, it's on top of your thigh.
Yeah, it's a little padding. Yeah.
And it's like I can't do it because it's like it's like hyperextending my knee. So I have to find a way to like fix myself in there so that way I can get that. But because of that,
so your favorite isolation exercise, your favorite single joint, so compounds, multi-joint, isolation, single joint, your favorite isolation exercise for your legs, you can't even always perform.
That's correct. You were talking about
That's the
challenges
reason you
before.
favor, because you're like, I don't really have to do it today. I can leave it in my squats. We're good. Like,
Right. But that's the whole thing. I don't do box squats, so I got to find some way to work on my hamstring. So the girls are going to be the way to go. But we have a power rack at our house, and I just got a dual cable pulley system where it's not really dual. It's kind of more like a high-low cable pulley ability, but I have coming to me ankle straps with
Oh, excellent.
multi-place hookups. And so I'll be able to do my leg curls and my leg extensions soon enough.
Excellent. So there you go. You'll be able to do them standing, work on your balance a little bit, one-legged, get that full range of motion because you're using the cable pulley system. Awesome.
Yeah, I could, but I'm probably also going to do them just on the flat bench. It'll give me if I lay with my stomach on the flat bench, it's far enough out from the low cable that I can do an adequate leg curl.
There you go. So that's your workaround. That's your way of getting out of making it more functional. Gotcha.
It's definitely not functional. It's not, the utility isn't there, but the other thing too, like I really want like a sled to be able to do extra stuff. But then I have to justify the cost for a sled. And
yeah, and then you're just gonna like outline your whole like driveway with turf. That'd be really cool too.
It's at a slight hill, so it would be like making good advantage and disadvantage depending on which way you're going to go. But either way, so what if you had to pick an isolation exercise? So single joint exercise for the chest. What's your favorite one?
You talk about using the cable pulley. I love the good old fashioned just flies on the cable pulley.
Are you going low fly or high fly?
High. Yeah. A little bit more ego there,
Yeah, like you're really going with nothing, like no utility in there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, Mister, I'm gonna do my lying leg curls. It's so functional. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. I wanted to beat you on the non-functionality. So when we create programs for you, our listener, our clients, our members, it's about your goals, like, and what you're wanting to work towards. So there may be some of the stuff thrown in there that if you particularly enjoy it, but if you're wanting more functional movement, some of these aren't exactly the most functional, but I enjoy it. So creating that well-rounded program. So I do have some more functional movements that I utilize in my programming, even for myself. But yeah, the cable pulley, give me the flies, just that nice range of motion, constant tension throughout. You can do nice, smooth and control, get that nice squeeze at the end. Nice way to finish off a chest day.
Yeah, if I was going with cable flies for the chest, I prefer the low to high pull. So you're pulling from below you going up. And that's not for a greater utility. The research that I've read, which I mean, there's plenty of research out there that could point the other way, is that might help more with your upper chest and building that, because your hand would be supinated. So if you think about it, if you're holding a soup bowl, your palm would be facing up towards the sky. So because of that direction of your hand being supinated and pulling that cable across your chest, it's supposed to be doing more work with the upper looking.
Yeah, it's more of the insertion there at the clavicle. It's kind of similar to the motion of an incline bench press or chest press. Isolating more of that particular part of the muscle, which is the reason you can't do as much, can't lift as much for most people. Again, ego, chest day.
That's the pin to the bottom. He's gonna try and do the whole stack.
Yeah, you're just one of those guys just rocking the whole time.
The weight is moving them. They are not moving.
Yeah,
them.
Exactly.
But we were laughing about the lack of utility in exercises earlier, but really the lack of utility should be put in like to quotes, because it's kind of the translation of the way the weight works in the resistance on your body and how that can be utilized in real life. And that's where the utility comes from. Where's the place for this? So like Matt said, bench press, there's really nothing there, but the movements that you are using those muscles in normally in life, like you're opening a door, you are um, pushing a box forward, you're um, handing something to someone else that's heavy, all those things, even though it's not the exact same motion as a bench press, you're utilizing all of the muscles that you would in a bench press, especially if it's pushing something that's heavy. Like that's
Absolutely.
like you're doing, a lot of different kind of things, but like if your chest isn't strong enough to help you and aid you in that, you're going to get tired really fast. And so that's kind of, as mentioned earlier briefly, that I really want to sled, use a lot of leg drive in there. But if you're just standing somewhere and pushing something with your hands, just pushing it, your legs aren't doing a lot of work if you're just pushing it forward. Like if you had, like boxes of paper at your work, you need to push it back against the counter or something, you are fully utilizing just your chest, your shoulders, your triceps. Like that's it. That's all that's moving that. And a lot of times those boxes are like 50 pounds a piece. So, you know, one day we won't have paper, but annoyingly we still have paper. But then on the other side of it, like a leg curl, the whole point of the leg curl is to strengthen your hamstring so that way you can better do regular movement. So if you are somebody that has a lot of knee pain, it might benefit you to try and find isolation exercises that focus on your hamstring work. If you have lower back pain, it might benefit you to do some posterior chain work where it's your glutes and your hamstrings that are doing the work. So that way you can strengthen those things, which will also help with your back pain. Now, as far as the bench press and helping with pains, like if you have problems sometimes with your like shoulders and your elbows, if you're able to um, do the motion to strengthen those additional muscles there in your shoulder and your arm, your elbow, that can also help to alleviate those pains. Like if you, I know plenty of people that are working with occupational therapists and physical therapists just to be able to lift a can. You're talking about activities of daily living, lift a can good, right? So like, I don't know, corn, carrots, whatever, doesn't matter. Something that's a can. You just want to lift it up and move it forward to put on a shelf. That's all those muscles.
So you think about what's firing right there. It's everything we just talked about, that exact motion.
Yeah. So it may not have a normal functional quote unquote utility where you're regularly trying to push the most amount of weight that you possibly can. But if you've ever been injured and you're trying to come back from injury, you have to start somewhere. And it might start with something as simple as lifting a can, right? So it's not to say that there's no utilization in it. But once you do get to like really big weights, it's really just straight
Ego. Yeah. Good old ego lifts.
Yeah. Like there's nowhere where I'm gonna randomly walk out there and be like, all right, I need to squat 400 pounds right now. Like it's probably never gonna happen. There's gonna be at least somebody else around that can help me lift that 400 pounds or squat. There's also not gonna be anywhere where I'm gonna bench press 300 pounds randomly. Probably, like there are those.
Your life's clearly different than mine. That's happens on a daily occurrence.
I mean, there's plenty of times and opportunity where those freak stories where there's people are in like a car accident.
Yeah, you just deadlift a car off somebody. Yeah.
But I always think about those things with small children. Like I have two small children, where as you get older, this is part of pushing the limit. So Matt wants to lift more weight to see what he can do. As you get older, you learn how to be gentle. And so you learn in your mind how to not fire every single muscular neuron, activate 100% of them. Really small children have insane grip. Like, it's, why can't I get this kid's hand off my
It's
wrist?
all or nothing. Yeah.
100%, it's all on. like they know. And that's the fun part, right? So as you get older, you turn less and less of those things on, but pushing yourself in the gym, you want to get to the highest rate of performance that you can, which is going to translate to you in your regular life, allowing you to do other things better. I was laughing about it. I was flipping through pictures. I have a picture of my watch from when I was running a 5K, and it's 2022. And way back in the beginning of 2022, I was like, I wonder if I can get a 5K where a 5K time that's less than 22 minutes for a 5K. And push myself. I got to 21 minutes. It was way back in April. I haven't tried harder since then. I was like, all right, I made it.
I'm good.
That was back in April, so like before 2022. So I made it like way early on. But the whole thing is that's setting a goal, right? And so if your peak performance is thinking about improving yourself, getting yourself to the next level, whatever your level is right now, your goal, my goal is I would love to have my total, so bench, squat, deadlift, be 1200 again. I'm way far away from that happening. So I have to set something smaller in a shorter term. So we'll talk about setting goals maybe on the next one, but that's kind of the bigger thing with all of this. When you're thinking about what your favorite things are to do in the gym, you still have to do all those other unfavorite things too. It's all the balance of getting the whole body moving towards whatever your goal is.
Absolutely. And thinking about not creating muscle imbalances, like I was talking about earlier, I love every, bench press variation there is, but for every pressing variation, I've got a pulling variation in there to make sure that I'm not putting myself out of alignment, making sure that, yes, I do sit at a desk all day, so I don't want to be hunched over. I don't want to have more back problems. So making sure I'm training those posterior deltoids, training the mid trapezius, the rhomboids, all that good stuff. So that way I'm nice and balanced and still ego lifting with my bench press.
Right. But also in the ego lift, like just if you are doing a bench press and you are doing it well, your head is on the bench, your back is on the bench, your hips are on the bench, your feet are touching the floor. So those are the minimum kind of things to make a successful bench in a powerlifting meet. But if you look up any video of any powerlifter, like how do they look? Their back is a little bit arched because their spine is all locked in. Their shoulder blades are pulled down and back, pressed into the mat. Their legs are incredibly flexed because they're pushing through. They're using their hip drive to help press the weight. Like there's so much more of your body that's utilized in a bench press than just your chest, your triceps, and your shoulders. But a lot of people will go into a gym thinking that those are the only things that are utilized in there. But those are like the top three. It's like, I don't know. I don't know the percentage off my head. I'm just saying those are the top three. It's not divided into equal thirds, but those are the top three movers of a bench press are those three muscles. But there's so many other pieces that all act as stabilizers, and they need to be working just as efficiently in order for you to push the most weight that you can.
Absolutely.
But that's the fun stuff. So the favorite muscle group to work for me is legs. Favorite muscle group for Matt to work is chest. So what's the lift you love, Matt?
Love a bench press. And then if we're going to just do isolation, throw me some good old fashioned cable flies in there. How about you with your legs?
Yeah, squats and leg curls. So squats for the compound, leg curls for the ISO. That's going to help your squat go up, up, up.
And any well-rounded program is going to have both compound movements and isolation movements for those various muscle groups.
Absolutely. So let us know what you guys love to do. What are your favorite things to work? And I'm talking about muscle groups. I'm not talking about you like going outside and working in your yard. I'm talking about work. I'm talking about work in the gym. What are your favorite muscle groups to work? What are your least favorite ones? We'll talk about that another time. But either way, this is Franchise Nutrition and Fitness Podcast. This was episode 2. Go back and listen to episode 1. And if you have any questions or things you want to talk about, sign up for our free meet and greet. Go over to franchisenutritionfitness.com and sign up down at the bottom of the page. Or if you just have questions you want to talk with, hit the contact us and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Either way, we're here to help you out. Maximize every bite, every rep.